21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
So did you know failing to keep up with state tax regulations could cause you to lose everything? In this episode, I will share with you some key information you need to get right if you want to protect your business's profits, and if you're thinking of selling at some point, make sure that that sale doesn't fall through. My name's Jared. I am COO of RGM Tax Exemption. I've been working at the company for the last 6 years. So when I began, we were about 3 employees, and then I took it and scaled it to 20 employees and working with over 5,000 businesses. Now in the beginning, we were e-commerce entrepreneurs wanting to sell into the US on Amazon, Shopify, like so many people. And we encountered some difficult hurdles. It was about tax, sales tax, setting up a business. So we started speaking to your lawyers, accountants, and they all gave us lots and lots of conflicting information. And we found that there was a problem here. No one knew how to sell across multiple states. People were happy to talk about their own states, but didn't want to talk about anything else. And so we then had to go and figure out all the answers ourselves. So, classic case, we were looking for gold, and we ended up finding a problem, and we started working out how we could sell the shovels to the solution. From there, we started our e-commerce business. We did all the compliance ourselves, and we had a catastrophic failure with our e-commerce business. We had our Amazon store shut down. Thousands and tens of thousands of dollars were locked up, and we weren't able to access it. And all of a sudden, like so many entrepreneurs, we're here, we've taken the risk, it hasn't paid off. However, multiple people we were in connection with started asking us, hey, how did you solve the sales tax problem? How did you solve the business setup problem? These were internationals at the time. And we then started charging a fee. We started setting it up from them. We started with a few clients a month. And before we know it, our connections grew. We went from working just with internationals, breaking into the US, into working with large US companies selling on all platforms all over the place. And that's what we do today. We have over 5,000 happy businesses we work with, and we make sure that they are compliant in a number of different ways to make sure that they can have no headaches and just sell stress-free. You're US based, you're selling on Amazon and it's going well. You think to yourself, well, I'm already paying my accountant to manage all the income taxes. I'm sure he can just do the sales tax as well. Now, what we found that many accountants hate sales tax because sales tax is different by state. You've basically got 50 countries in one in the US when it comes to sales tax. It is a nightmare. So accountants, let's say one's from New York, he's happy in New York. Other states, he doesn't like it. But what happened recently, we had a client who came to us to help him with his sales tax issues because his accountant just didn't file any of his sales taxes. So they had to file it in a few states, not loads, but he basically dropped the ball. So in comes thousands of dollars of estimates. They weren't sure what they were. They paid them when they didn't have to. And they contacted us. They found us. We sorted everything. And the client ended up sacking their accountant because it was completely mismanaged. So it's not just a bad thing for you as a business if you use somebody who hasn't got the expertise. It could be a bad thing if we've got any accountants listening. We need to make sure we use the experts around us to make sure we save ourselves money, and we don't have a horrendous headache, because it can lead to thousands of dollars paid which really don't need to be paid straight off your bottom line. Another thing that's really important when it comes to sales tax is using software. When you're selling across 50 different states, you've got 11,000 jurisdictions, and each charging a different sales tax rate. Depending on the products you sell, it could have a different taxability. It's all very complicated, pretty boring, but it's very complicated. The big issue we have in this day and age is people love AI, they love software, they love it all, but there is becoming an over-reliance on it. You need to have AI paired with somebody who knows what they are doing. For example, somebody we worked with, they had the software to collect the sales tax for them, and they found a button to collect sales tax in every single state. Now, if you weren't aware, you only need to collect sales tax in the state where you have what we call nexus, which is a physical presence or meeting an economic threshold. So you need to make sure you know where you have it. So this client clicked the button, collected sales tax in every state. The software did its job, and they collected sales tax in every state without registering for 3 years. And they collected $200,000 in sales tax without paying it back to the state. Now, it is solvable. We did fix it for them. We did mitigate the fines and interest through various methods, but it was simple. All they did was tick a button. The software did its job, but because they didn't have an expert looking behind the scenes, they had no idea. And the reason it came up was they sold their business. So they went to sell their business. Most people buying a business will do some kind of audit, and they discovered a significant sales tax liability. And basically, this client lost $200,000, what he expected he was going to get. So it's important not to be over-reliant on AI and software. It's great, but use an expert at the same time. Get a second opinion. Make sure you haven't done anything accidental. It sounds stupid, but one mouse slip, $200,000. That's all it took. Question 3. So wanted to talk just a little bit about, how as a business RGM can help people save money by paying less sales tax on their purchases. Vast majority of people understand that, when you buy a product, because you're going to sell it on, you shouldn't need to pay sales tax. However, because all the rules are different, you might need to supply different certificates depending on where you are. Some people just ignore it and they think, I'll just pay the sales tax twice. Sales tax on average is 7% in the US, thereabouts. And what can happen is people, let's say they're doing $10,000 of purchases a month, that's just starting off, and they're wasting $700 each month just straight to tax. One of the things we do is we get people sales tax exempt. We save that $700, which goes straight to their bottom line profits. You can see profit margins boosted by 20-30%. And we found there were quite a lot of clients and people we worked with who had just been for 2-3 years, not realizing that they didn't have to pay that. There are some examples in the e-commerce space where you may be paying sales tax and you don't know about it. It could be print on demand. Many people use print on demand, and they could use Printify, Printful to do their drop shipping, and they charge sales tax. It is possible to get sales tax exempt from these platforms. So if anyone's listening and they use these platforms, they don't know if they're paying sales tax, have a look in your order. Are you paying sales tax? Check it out. We can help you save all of that sales tax straight back to your pocket. So, it's worth having a look for sure. One of the things that I personally take pride in more than anything else is how amazing our customer service team are and the level of customer service we give. It is echoed incredibly through our Trustpilot. We are #1 in the tax preparer category in Trustpilot, and that's because we take an extra care to give people the customer service they need. We love having a mixture of one-to-one video calls or email consultations with using software, and we really feel that gives our clients something extra. As I mentioned earlier, we are getting into the AI world, but sometimes you just want to speak to a real person. Sometimes you just want a bit of clarity. So we love to speak to our clients as much as they like. Some people don't want as much, but we really tailor the experience for them. And that's why we review so highly. Another thing, we really want to pitch fair prices. You'll speak to lawyers and accountants like we did at the start. They'll charge you by the hour for a conversation where you feel like you get nowhere. Other places, they charge you loads of money for a really pretty dashboard on their, but then they give really poor customer service. We give the middle ground. We give you both. We give you good value, we give you great customer service, and we give you software at a competitive rate, and we don't like to be beaten in price anywhere, so we'll match it whatever you can get. When we start selling online, we all have a dream to make it big, to 1 million, 10 million, sell the business. It can take 5, 10, 15 years to get there. So many of us, we don't tick all the boxes to start with. We cut a couple of corners. Now, we had this client who didn't go through with us. Basically, they were selling in the US. They were selling, ice cold buckets you out and saunas outside, and they were making a lot of money. We're talking 8 figures, huge business, but they hadn't been compliant. They hadn't been compliant for 3 years, and we helped them do an assessment. What's their total liability? And it was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. If they were to be audited, that's how much they had to pay. They basically were in no position to get compliance, because they hadn't budgeted for it. They were so drawn up on how successful they were, they forgot about the tax. Now, we're not thinking we're going to be so successful in 5 years, but the worst thing that I could think would be to happen is if you run a really successful business with employees, 10, 20, and all of a sudden you start having to let people go because of your oversight when it came to tax in the beginning. You didn't educate yourself. That's not what I would want to do. I don't recommend you doing it. So really get this stuff right in the beginning. If you aren't going to do it, educate yourself. We've got some great blogs you can read. You don't necessarily have to do it, but just make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Make sure you know where you should be registered for sales tax. Even if you don't, just make sure you know what you've got coming around the corner. Many people we work with, sometimes they might cut a couple of corners, and then when they get busy, they go, "Hey, Jared, I'm ready to get compliant now because I know the risk is going to get higher." The reality is, the more successful you are, the more sales you make, the higher the chance that audit is going to come for you. And you know what they say in the US, there's only 2 things which are certain to happen. That's death and taxes. So yeah, if you've enjoyed listening to me today, if you want to find out any more, you can check out our website. That's www.rjmtaxexemption.com. We have a booking link you can book that will book with either myself or our CEO, and we'll love to talk to you about your business. And anybody, if you mention that you've listened to this podcast, we'll give you an additional 10% off any of our packages that you purchase. Thank you.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Imagine a space where triumphs, trials, and tales of entrepreneurship come alive. Welcome to the 21st Century Entrepreneurship Podcast, a gold awarded journey hosted by Martin Piskarik, connecting with listeners in 95 countries and ranking in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Join our exclusive community, elevate your perspective, and embark on the path to success.